Hello, a very warm welcome back to the series on karma, destiny and choice. Today we will be specifically looking at the topic of the interface between karma and destiny. As you may very well know, this is a fascinating series on a subject that has interested mankind for a very long time, which is the subject of the law of karma. I welcome back to the studio Sister Denise. A very warm welcome, Sister Denise.
Thank you very much.
So, the interface between karma and destiny. The topic itself grabs one's attention. What does that mean to you?
The main problem people have is they like to decide whether it's karma or destiny. And what we're doing here is putting three energies together. Right now we're looking at karma and destiny, but the three includes the idea of choice. And so karma is not really very well understood. People have assumptions about it, and I think that during this series we'll be clarifying in a lot of detail. Destiny is again mysterious. Most people feel and believe that there is a destiny, they have a destiny, they don't know what it is. Very rarely do we find people looking at karma and destiny as two energies running along side by side, but in the spiritual knowledge that we study at the Brahma Kumaris, we do take this into consideration, and it must be taken into consideration, but it's new to do that. And so I think it's good that we go slowly, step by step, because normally people think it's either this or that. When it becomes both and, then we're looking at the paradox of this.
When it comes to making a decision, how does one look at the subject of karma and destiny? The feeling that I get is that at any given point in any human being's life, the law of karma is playing out, as well as destiny. Your destiny is playing out. How does one know when it comes to, say, crossroads, which path to take?
It's very subtle, and I don't think you can really know. In many ways you have to take a risk, and that risk is based upon how subtly you can interpret and perceive what's really happening. So it's really about very subtly reading some of the signs that are going on. Something is there in your life which may be troubling you, a circumstance, a situation, and in spiritual practice we always say a circumstance will arise, and that is out of your control. It just comes. How you deal with it is up to you. But before you deal with it, you have to interpret it. What is this? What does it mean? Suppose you start with the angle of destiny and you say, okay, it is destined for this circumstance to come in front of me, and destiny can be considered to have a meaning. So then you can ask yourself the question is, what is the deeper meaning for me, for my progress, for my advantage, as to why this circumstance has come to me? What is the message behind it, you know? So then you start to look at that and say, you're looking at your character. And then you will say, okay, this circumstance has come in front of me because there's some lesson I need to learn, because the overall point of life, the purpose of life, it's often been said is to be happy, but you can only really be happy when everything is in balance and when you've understood the meaningfulness of everything. So it's very subtle, and you have to keep sort of looking at different angles all the time because it shifts and moves. So you say, okay, this is destined because I have to learn something. Then you bring in karma, Okay, karma means what I do. Karma means also sanskaras. And sanskaras is another energy, the trends that you create in your life because of habits, patterns. And so this is all connected with your karma. If you have a karma which is not so good, it doesn't suit who you are in depth. It doesn't really follow the voice of conscience. But you've created habits. Maybe you're arrogant, maybe you're angry, whatever. People have all kinds of weaknesses, and they act under the influence of these weaknesses, and they create a trend. And that trend is going to head off towards the future, and it's going to look like destiny. But then there's also a destiny that's already there. So your karma, your sanskaras send you in one direction. You have a destiny that may be a little different. Which is stronger? Your karma, your destiny. How do you give power to one rather than the other? It corresponds to a seesaw, or it's just a balance, you know? You put weight and you give weight to one side, then that becomes the dominant energy. If you fail to put weight where you should put weight because you didn't understand, you didn't interpret, then it'll go to the way of the default, which corresponds to your weakness. And then you could say, well, there was a beautiful destiny set out for me, but I didn't do what I had to do to realize it, so the other thing happened, and I'm to blame.
When I listen to you, I get the impression that when approaching the subject of karma and destiny, one needs a fair amount of introspection.
You do, because it's very difficult to know oneself. Normally, a person is reflected back to themselves by their families, their people at work, their friends, whoever is around them. They respond to you, they react to you, they mirror you, and they say, okay, this is how I see you, and then you start seeing yourself like that. But sometimes people don't really see you. And if you are introspective, and you really try and see yourself how you see yourself, we have a practice of coming out of the body and looking back on the self, almost like you can project yourself like you're a camera looking at yourself from the outside. How do I look? You can do that. Your mind has many capabilities. Looking at yourself from the inside, how does it feel to be me? The practice of going inside to feel yourself from the inside is very good because it's deeper. All of us use different masks. We perform differently in different situations with different people. And these personas that we adopt, they're fine, but there's a real me that's behind it all. As you really look into the matter of karma, destiny, choice, etc., what you want to try to be is really, really true to yourself. You can't be true to yourself unless you are close to yourself. And sometimes there are influences on the outside which don't want you to be close to yourself. And they want you to mold the way they want you to be. So then you have to decide, do I want to be the way they want me to be, or do I want to be the way I am? If you want to be the way you are, and you don't fit the mold that is designed for you by the people around you, they will make you pay. So then comes the matter of your personal power. And again, you have to take many risks, because I think ultimately the people around you actually like better who you really are than this artificial mold that they want to put on you. And unless you assert that, they will never know who you really are. Though they may put a lot of things against it, ultimately they like it much better.
When I hear you speak, I get the distinct impression that one has to invest a lot of energy in oneself in order to manage these two forces, and that takes self-respect, self-love, sense of dignity. And the reason I'm bringing up this question in this context is that most people watching you right now are broken and damaged. A very large percentage of the world's population are concerned with survival. How does these two forces come into play in this context?
When you take up the word survival, it brings to mind the word thrive, because I think we have a right to thrive even when circumstances are going against us in every direction. To thrive, the more you're close to yourself, the more you're willing to risk to assert yourself as you are, who you are, as well as being flexible, as well as, I think, have an eye for your higher purpose. Higher purpose is an interesting idea because I think that it corresponds to an intuitive sense of your destiny. And if you can feel that you have a high destiny and others don't reflect that back to you, but still you feel it. I mean, I know sometimes I experience in myself, okay, whatever it is people reflect back to me, that's okay. But there is something happening on the inside which is reflecting something from that angle. And I tend to give it much more credibility, because public opinion is very variable, you know. Something that comes from very deep within corresponds with something eternal. And I look at destiny also as something eternal. We have to discern it, capture it. We also have to create it. It's like it's there, but it can't be activated unless we see it, detect it, and activate it, and then apply our investment in the self to that. It is said that we get distracted from our real goal by temptations and desires and maybe even karmic accounts. And this is an interesting one to show the relationship between the two, right? A karmic account is something that you have with someone from maybe another life that's not settled, so you have to settle it. So that energy of someone coming into your life, very powerful energy, you recognize them, you're drawn, you're pulled, but it takes you away from your higher purpose. Then you have to choose. Choosing between yourself and your debt, when you put it in those terms.
Sorry,
yourself
and your
debt.
D-E-B-T,
Yeah.
not D-E-A-D.
No, debt, D-E-B-T.
Okay, debt, yes.
So choosing between yourself and your debt, what's more important? Yourself. Debt you pay. You know, it's like the electricity bill, you pay. Sometimes you get bills which are very expensive. You find a way, you pay. But you do not get undone by a debt. If you do get undone by a debt, it means you've got your priorities wrong. And you got yourself into trouble over a long period of time because your priorities were not right. So when you study spiritual knowledge and you look at these energies, you get an opportunity to get your priorities right. Maybe you have to pay expensive, high-priced debt. Pay it, because there is nothing more valuable than yourself. And any debt you get into is always going to be less than the value of yourself when you're fully realized, you know. But a lot of people don't get it, because the energy of the debt is very strong. It's like a magnetic pull on you, and you just go for it because you feel that it's real. But when you position yourself a little dispassionately, and you say, okay, this is a debt, however attractive, however complex, However strong the magnetic energy is, it is a debt, and because you know spiritual knowledge, if you study it well, you know the strategies you have to apply to neutralize that debt. And it will cost you maybe your dignity, maybe some time, some energy, whatever. But whatever you need to do to settle that debt, settle it. Because then you can get on with your life. That means you can move yourself to follow that call of your destiny. Because if you don't, it remains lack of fulfillment. You remain an unfulfilled person because you got pulled by trivial things.
As I hear your last words, the image that keeps coming to mind, perhaps because I work for the Department of Justice, is balanced scales. How does one ensure that the scales are balanced in the context of karma and destiny?
One of the aspects of the law of karma, which is very interesting, is that it's always looking for balance. Our interaction with each other, with the environment, with the divine, if we do it right, it stays balanced. When we do it wrong, it goes out of balance. So then the law of karma is a force that wants to bring it back to balance. You may disregard the law of karma, you may follow your trend to take it further out of balance, and if it goes really out of balance, you collapse. And the law of karma doesn't allow that. So it doesn't matter how far away you take yourself, one fine day it'll come and very seriously pull you back into balance. And you will not like that because it's a very unpleasant process. But it's an ineluctable energy that you cannot avoid. So better to spend a lot of time paying attention to keeping everything in balance. And it may mean that you have to give up some desire, or you have to free yourself from a powerful influence that's taking you away from yourself. There are many energies going on which are all very invisible, and I think when you practice meditation and you turn within, you become very sensitive to these things. I mean, in a way, to be a very spiritual person is really good, but it's also got a downside because you're so sensitive that, you know, you need a great deal of resilience to manage your sensitivity to all the things that most people are quite insensitive to. You know, you will detect stuff, you will see stuff, you will know stuff that you wouldn't normally be able to know just by normal perception.
You know, within the human psyche, at this time in humanity, there is a very strong desire to live out there, and not that strong a desire to even consider the things that you're saying. Why has this become the human condition?
Being externalized and extroverted is an attribute of being spiritually depleted. Because when you're spiritually depleted, you look to the outside to get fulfillment. And you get more and more empty, and you look further and further out. It's rather a vicious circle. But there is some sort of a voice within that says, you know, hey, I'm going down the wrong track. I need to do something about this. And a person becomes some kind of a seeker, and they look for another way. Because it's only really when you turn within that you're able to reverse this situation of loss of power and going off into the wrong track. Unbeknownst to yourself, because you're just ignorant, creating negative karma left and right. And so I think one of the reasons we make these programs is so that people can get information that they can think about as they move forward in their lives, and they're able to then decide if they want to give importance to this, because certainly it will bring their life back to balance. And when your life's in balance, then you can take it away and go where you have to go.
Sister Denise, from a human perspective, when I do introspect and turn around and look at my own karma and destiny, and I look at the burden of it all, the horror of it all, isn't there a sense of, oh my God, what do I do with this? Can it not be overwhelming?
I think it can, but this is where also the idea of destiny comes in a very nice way, because it is the destiny of everyone to become free.
That is so true and so beautiful.
And when you become free, you become light. It's like those things don't matter. You know, there are many people who had to pass through very difficult times, very severe trials, and very often they will say that that was the best thing that happened to them, because it really made them take a good long look and turn their life around. So nothing is without meaning. And the meaning is always taking us to a very positive situation. So even if it seems like really overwhelming, look at it from a slightly different angle and just take a step of courage, and you're on a different level.
Okay, I'm glad you brought us to that point, because my question to you is now, one is aware of the interplay of these two energies of karma and destiny, and so where to from here?
I think we just simply need to really look at balancing. Balance is good, the inner and the outer, the heart and the intellect, your private solitary time, your social time, your work investment, your family investment. Everything has to be in balance. This is the recipe for perfection. Normally people who like perfection, they go for some extreme situation which is going to just be very out of balance. Just look at all the different things going on in your life. Balance also means fluid. Sometimes I ride on trains standing without holding on to anything, because you practice just shifting your weight so that you just stay in balance in a movable situation. Or if you're on a ship in water, on a boat, you have to be in balance all the time. And that fluidity, I think, allows you to take good advantage of the shifting circumstances and do the right thing at the right time.
From a practical perspective, it is not possible to think about what you just said all day, every day. How much time do you suggest that a person spends on themselves on any given day to contemplate these things without driving yourself nuts, and whilst doing what's best for yourself? There has to be a balance, hasn't there?
Yeah, and everybody's very different, you see. You know, some people are very intense and they do it a lot and very intensively. Some people a little bit this and that. So it's really about understanding your own self and acting according to what you are and who you are, and not denying what you are and who you are. There's no such thing as a general human being, you know. We're very, very different. You know how many different character types and so on that the psychological disciplines describe and define. And you can try to understand yourself that way, but still you're an individual. And spending time with yourself brings you closer to yourself. And the people that you select to be with have to be people who help you to balance, who help you to be closer to yourself, who reflect you authentically, And, you know, it is said you're judged by the people that you associate with. Because you do look for people who correspond to who you are. Sometimes it is said in a general way, give yourself an hour a day just for you.
Yeah.
That's not out of range.
No, it's not. It sounds quite doable.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Sister Denise, for an extremely informative half an hour. So there you go, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen. The subject of the interface between karma and destiny is quite a deep subject, as you've just heard. And I would warmly invite you to follow the rest of this series so that you can look at other related topics into the fascinating subject of the law of karma. Thank you so much for joining us for this half an hour, and I do hope to see you again soon. Thank you and take care. Goodbye.